Hello and welcome to another episode of the AV Experience. I'm Ryan, joined as always by Jonathan, the man that causes me all kinds of problems, especially my wallet. Uh, we we watched a movie together last night with some other guys in the Kansas City AV group. We'll talk about that a little bit later. We're going to talk about what him and I view as the three most important things in home theater. That's going to be today's topic. You guys can agree with us. Some of you won't agree with us, but I think it's always interesting to hear what others have to say about this and what they value on their home theater journey. Because I think we talk about subjectivity and everybody being different as it comes to home theater and our journeys. And I think this is going to be a lot of the same. And I have a feeling that Jonathan and I are going to be either very different or we're going to be exactly the same. But I think we're going to be very different on this one. So we'll see where that goes. But Jonathan, it has been 24 hours since I've seen you.
A little
A
little
little
less.
less than 24 hours. So hopefully you've been well.
Yeah.
Work was good today, not stressful. I know you've had
Yeah,
some
well,
stressful
actually
stuff
a
at
little bit
work
lighter
lately.
day. Friday kind of before some people have some, Father's Day, so some guys took off early, so less customer presence today, it seemed like.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Yeah, Father's
Not,
Day
not,
Sunday. You got any
not,
plans?
no, no. We don't really do any of that. I don't know. We just don't. My wife says, well, we're not going to do anything because we buy what we want anyway. So there's no point. And you should celebrate each other every day. You don't need a day to do it. So, hi, Velma.
She wants to go upstairs. If she keeps hollering, I'll have to let her upstairs. Oh,
Oh,
someone's already doing it for me.
okay. Wish I could bring my
We're gonna
dog
go
upstairs.
camping. We're gonna go to Roaring River State Park and go camping. So
There's
that'll
not
be
a
fun.
mountain involved with this, is there?
I don't think so.
Okay.
It's Southwest Missouri, so it
Your
can't be.
brakes are going to be okay.
We'll see. We're bringing the
Now I'm just
camper.
imagining brake failure with the THX sound going off at the same time. Brakes
Fantastic.
are on fire, and you just hear like the Eclipse logo going in the background as things get louder and louder and louder, and the kids are screaming in the background. I mean, we could license that to THX.
That
That
would
could
be
be one
funny.
of
A
their
little trailer.
intros. I don't think that would be very. Your family would not think that was very funny if that was happening.
Conceptually, it's funny.
Conceptually, yes, but in actuality, probably not.
Practice, no. Yeah.
So before we get into the topic, you and I, Grant and Sheldon, watched a movie,
Yes.
and we had talked about this before because it was. I had mentioned that I had watched it and you hadn't watched it, so I said, "Hey, we should watch it," because I thought it was a not what you expect movie. And it was funny because somebody in chat, and I remember this vividly, said, I didn't like it. I thought it was boring. And you guys, after the movie ended last night, it was like everybody was stressed out from
Yeah, yeah.
watching what we watched. So we
Yeah,
watched
that's anything
Warfare.
boring. It's intense,
We
it's
watched
traumatic,
Warfare.
a little
And
PTSD. Yeah.
did you understand now why I was saying it's different? Like it's not what a typical war movie is. It
Yeah.
is I won't ruin it because I think it is one of those movies that you do need to go experience. Everybody agreed that it's one of those movies that you're not going to watch for enjoyment necessarily. It is something that you go through to experience it because it is dark. I mean, it doesn't sugarcoat what war is. It's different. It's not your traditional action-packed war movie with heroes and stuff. It's not like that. But what did you think? You said you were going to talk to one of your friends about some stuff. Did that ever come to fruition? I know you
Yeah,
reached
yeah.
out. Did you hear anything?
He watched maybe half of it or so far, and he gave me some feedback. He was an Army Ranger, so he had direct experience in this exact kind of situation. Um, he was telling me that it may not be 100% realistic from his perspective, but that it also could vary a little bit unit to unit.
Mhm.
And he gave me some specifics with a lot of jargon terms I don't even know. But he said it wasn't like terribly bad or anything. Like it
Right.
just some of the stuff was a little off, and he might have been even nitpicky. Like at the beginning when they're all kind of watching that video and hooting and hollering, he's like,
Mhm.
that would happen, but it would be like 6 to 8 guys instead of 20 guys or whatever. It
Well,
was
yeah.
it was stuff like that. Like those he had pointed out, like if they had their rifles ever, there would always be a magazine in the rifles. They would not ever have them empty, as they saw in some
Mhm.
scenes. So it was just kind of like, yeah, like you're ready to go if you're holding your weapon type thing.
Right. Smigs, the movie was Warfare by A24. So what did you think?
It's one of those movies to me that's like so tense that it's hard to stomach. Like you leave thinking about it, and you're thinking about it the next day, and it's intense. It was really well done. The sound was awesome. The video was good. I, it's stressful. I mean, it really is stressful because it's like the horrors of war. It's really what it
Mhm.
is, and
Mhm.
it's a small group of people that you kind of, it's tight knit group of guys that you're kind of following and just watching their interaction in a real life scenario over there.
Mhm.
It's tough. It's tough to watch.
Mhm. Yeah. It's intense. Funnily enough, my wife fell asleep. How she fell asleep during that movie, I don't know. But she falls asleep during any movie, I guess. So I do know. But she fell asleep. So she evidently did not find it very interesting. I won't say enjoyed is the wrong word. I didn't hate it,
Hmm.
but enjoyed is not the right word for that movie. It's it's an
Think about some of the
experience.
more intense war movies you've watched, and then think like, is this something that I could watch on a regular basis? And the answer is probably like,
No,
no, it's
no,
uncomfortable, right? And this is in that category. Like,
yes.
it's worth seeing, but prepare yourself, gird up because it's intense.
The
And
sound was really good.
you're just so thankful that you're not in that situation,
Yeah.
or, that you're not. And the way they filmed it, there was very little score playing. It was just like raw. Like
Was
it
there
was like you
music
were
at
there.
all in it?
At the end of the movie, when they were playing the credits, there was, and other than that, I'm not sure there
Yeah,
was.
I don't think there was. But you don't notice that during the movie. You don't notice that there's no music, and I don't think there was any music during
And
any
you
of
had mentioned that the recordings for the rounds, the ammunition flying had been really
I think
precisely
so.
done with
Yep.
specific ammo types that matched what the weapon was firing and so forth.
Mhm. Mhm. Because you notice when the machine gunners were up on the roof, both
Mhm.
of those guns sounded different. They were
Mhm.
firing different types of
Mhm.
munitions. So it was nice that they paid attention, right?
Mhm.
That they paid attention to the little details, to the minutia, and it was I'm glad I watched it.
Mhm.
It's not something that I'm gonna go back and watch next week or something. I'll probably watch it again at some point, but it's too stressful to really
So Chad is
enjoy.
asking what movie are we even talking about? It's
I
Warfare.
said, yeah, it's
I
Warfare. Did
think he
somebody
might have.
else ask? Oh,
Yeah.
Smigs. Yeah. So Warfare. Um, did you get any of Sheldon liked it. What did Grant think? Do you remember?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody there liked it. It was just intense, and you could tell, like, just like the characters on screen, there would be like a surprise attack or explosion or something, and that would get you in the audience too, especially
Mhm.
with your system dialed in. And the reference jet flyby was really fun, or close to reference. That was
I knew
exciting.
things were coming and they still got me
I
because I had
didn't know
seen it
they were coming,
before
and they
and they
really got me.
still got me.
It's
Still
like
got
almost the
me.
kind of stuff where you jump so hard it like
Mhm.
stretches a muscle or something. Like it hurts a
Mhm.
little bit.
Yeah. So don't I don't regret watching that one. My wife probably does, but I don't. Any thoughts on what we'll do next? Are you doing it or is Sheldon?
We haven't figured it out. We will figure it out.
Okay. Do you know what you want to watch yet?
No, we were talking about that. Sheldon and I mentioned that in passing. I don't know yet. He's thinking something like in the 1980s that he really enjoys. Like he kind of wants to showcase something, even if it's not the best AV video, just something he really enjoys. That's fine. That's probably what I'll do too. Something I really enjoy.
Predator
Might be off
2.
the beaten path a little bit or something.
Predator 2. I knew that was your favorite movie. It's such a terrible movie, but I don't know why my brain went there, but it did.
I
Okay.
like the fact that this was something that we hadn't seen, so it'd be great. Well, you'd seen it before, but only recently, and it's
Mhm.
fairly new. I like the idea that it wouldn't be something we'd all rewatched a bunch of times or something too. So I'll
That's
try to
hard
keep.
to do though. It's hard to find a movie that everyone hasn't seen.
Mhm.
So I don't know what that could be. There's some other movies like there's a movie that just came out called is it Sinister or what I don't even know what it I'll have to look at. We'll talk about it. I don't know what the movie is, but this was I enjoyed watching with other people instead of us going on by ourselves. Anyway,
Sure.
enough about that. Let's jump into the topic. So today's topic is the three most important things in home theater, and these are opinions. These are not like some objective truth that this is what the most important thing is that was scientifically Sinners. Thanks, Migs. That's the movie I was thinking about. That's supposed to be really good. So maybe we could watch all that together. I could bring it over if that's something we wanted to do. But anyway, three most important things. And these are opinions. These are Jonathan and I's opinion. If you don't share these opinions, you are wrong. So just know that these are opinions. There's no objective testing or anything done with these. These are our opinions. This is not a universal truth. But let's start at number 3. So number 2 and number 1, or number 2 and number 3 for me, I was waffling back and forth on. They could potentially go either way, but I think number 2 is number 2. Number 3 for me, and
to be clear, we haven't talked about this, so we don't even know what the other person's going to say yet. That's going to be kind of some of the fun here.
No. Number 3 for me is, and this is kind of broad, is a dialed in sub installation. Like, I think that is very important because it is a huge part of what we actually listen to. And it can be a money sinkhole depending on how you do it. And I think a lot of people don't spend enough of their budget on the low frequency because we look at these speakers that are typically front and center and they take more attention. And that's where a lot of people's primary amount of their budget goes, that and the display. And they forget about this other stuff. And when you're demoing a system, at least from my experience, and I think you would echo this, the majority of what gets demoed is bass heavy content, right? That's a big part of it. Oh, do you feel your pants legs moving or your hair moving or all this stuff? And you don't talk about the high frequency making your ears bleed, or, sometimes you talk about the video, but it's almost always universally the bass. And it doesn't get talked about enough. So number 3 for me is a dialed in bass. It's really important.
So while we're on that topic, I'll just say that's my number 1. So we're on the same page, but a slightly different order. And that's okay. It's top priority for both of us.
It's going to be funny if our orders are just backwards.
Yeah. So in my mind, not only does it really give impact and awe and like the wow factor for movies and stuff, but for music, it engages you. You get that tactile sensation in your chest and your body, and it kind of like reminds you of being at a club or being at a, just like where there's live music. And like my wife once said to me, and this was in a negative way, like she was annoyed at my subwoofers. She said, without subs, it's just background music, but with subs, it's the main event. And I put that as my forum signature for a while because that's like really true. And she was doing that as like a, like, stop.
She's trying to dig at you, and you're like,
and I was like, that's awesome.
I've made it.
That's exactly right. It's the main event when you have subs. So fantastic for music, fantastic for movies. Like it's the element that can be, if it's missing, it will never be a top tier. And so on my list, very specifically, I said 2 subwoofers, and meaning like reference capable subwoofers, not 1 because you got too many modes and nulls in the room, but at least 2 like reference capable subwoofers. Say, I would like to see 16 hertz tuned, like as a minimum,
at least.
Like, yes. And not a 20 hertz, not a 30 hertz tuned sub. I'm talking like 2 15s, 2 18s that are 16 hertz tuned is kind of my wish set. And I think that's, to me, that's the most important thing. So I skipped my third. I'm going to let you do your second, and I'll see if mine jives in there or not.
I don't know that it's going to, but we'll see. So number 2 for me was, it's kind of 2 parts. The big part, and the more I've done theater, the more I've realized that this is important. This is home theater, but it's also 2-channel, is the speakers, but specifically the speakers being able to produce dynamics and sensitivity. That was number 2 for me.
You want to elaborate more?
Well, it's having a speaker that is reference capable, low distortion, almost no distortion, and has the sensitivity to be able to produce the dynamic range that, once you get used to it, there's really no going back. I mean, there's no putting that back into the box from once it came, and
Mhm.
trying to forget about it.
Mhm.
So it's kind of the same thing with speaker or with the subs, just getting speakers that do what they should be able to do.
Mhm.
And not just getting what's pretty or what measures well necessarily frequency response wise, because there's more to it than that. But it's a dynamic and sensitive speaker in a nutshell, I guess.
Yeah, that's my number 2 as well. So we are on the exact same page. And I and
Oh man.
I think that was kind of difficult for me to all these 3 were kind of difficult. Like, how do you order them? Is this the right order? You're kind of thinking through it.
I don't know.
But to me, and I've had this thought for a long time, and I still think it's true. A fantastic sub can make a mediocre pair of speakers sound fantastic overall.
Mhm.
But fantastic speakers with a mediocre sub, the sub will drag them down. And
Yes.
so, like, that's why I put the subs higher than the speakers in my tiering list, because I think, like, the subs need to be the top tier quality in order to, like, really make your system get that next level.
Mhm.
And a mediocre sub with a fantastic speaker system is just not it's just not gonna be as what you're after. Like,
Mhm.
it drags it down.
It does. Okay, so we've been
We're
just
we're
different
matched on
order.
number 2, and we're just
We
twisty
were
turns on number
backwards.
3. Mhm.
All right, you got to tell me what your
You want me to lead
number
this
3
one?
is. You lead this one.
So this is my 3rd one.
Mhm.
Um, my subwoofers were first, speakers were second, and
Mhm.
then the 3rd one is, like, image size. How do you categorize this? Like a big immersive image,
We
like
were
a
so I think we said that in a different way. I said the room.
mhm,
So the image, the room
mhm,
plays a big part in that and creating the image. God, that's
mhm,
weird that we just kind of said the same thing except backwards.
mhm,
And no, we did not talk to each other. We just came up with he texted me literally a couple hours ago and said, "Hey, this is the topic. We kind of mentioned this." And then I started thinking about it. And
mhm,
that's so I'm the room. So your image size and
mhm.
placement and
I
where
think
things
I
are.
think room is very important as well. And, depending on how you define the room. The image size to me, like, you could have a fantastic subwoofer and a fantastic speaker system, but if you're running on, like, a 45-inch TV, it's still gonna be fun, but it's gonna lack something, right?
Hmm.
But if you just have the large image size and you're using, like, a built-in speaker projector, a projector speaker, like it's just playing a tinny sound, that's crap. So you don't want that either. Um, I didn't place it higher than 3rd in my list because I was thinking, like, we've enjoyed subwoofers and speakers and, like, reference capable audio for like 20 years, but along that time we didn't necessarily have the best projected image. I mean, I don't know what you started with as far as that goes, but I started with, like, an eBay projector that was like an LCD projector, and it was like 640 by 480 or something, right? And that's what I had a fantastic set of subs. This was in college time frame. I had 2 Infinity HPS 1000 subs, and I had a crappy projector, but we still loved it. Um, and all through the years, as the image quality gets better and better through these different projectors that I've owned, like,
Oh,
yes,
you meant the
it gets
video
better.
image.
I'm saying, like, the size of the image, the size of
Oh, I
the
see what you
display, the
meant.
quality of the display, like, the immersiveness
Mhm.
of the display is kind of where my head was at on that one.
I see.
Like, that having a lower quality image, if you're watching a DVD, for instance, modern terms, this might be a way to explain it. Like, you're still going to enjoy the movie. It might at first you might think this is kind of like a little grudgy when you start it up, but by the end of the movie, you're not even going to be thinking about it. You're just going to be enjoying the movie.
Mhm.
So, image quality is very important. Size is very important. Quality is very important. But I don't think it necessarily ruins the experience unless you're scaling it way back, like you're down
Mhm.
to a small TV or something.
Yeah, I thought you meant the audio image, like
Oh
how
no,
the
I'm talking
speakers
about
are
the
imaging.
actual projected image.
I'm
Yeah,
with you now. Okay.
yeah.
So we did deviate a little bit there. Mine was the room and how the room impacts the experience,
Mhm,
right? People, I don't know why. I mean, was in this camp too,
mhm,
where you take and you pick the equipment first,
mhm,
and then you just say, "Okay, now I'm gonna build the room to suit the equipment."
mhm,
And I don't really like that philosophy. I think it should be the other way around. You have the room, you get the equipment that suits the room, and you
mhm,
use the equipment to fix certain problems. And yes, really good equipment is able to fix more problems because it is really good and it behaves as it should and it's not creating problems on its own. But the reason I thought you meant image size and the reason I brought up the room and I thought we were the same is because the room really impacts how the image is conveyed to, and by the audio image, like how the sound staging is presented
Mm-hmm.
to the listener. And this, I use my room a lot for 2-channel. And so the room interacts with that immensely, and it creates an enormous soundstage, a really, really wide soundstage where a big part of it sounds like it's next to you and behind you. And
Mm-hmm.
without a good room, it doesn't work. So the room, the more I've done this, the more important it has become. So my number one is the room. Number two is sensitive and dynamic speakers. And I mean dynamics, meaning they're able to convey very loud and very soft details. They're
Mm-hmm.
not just one hit wonders. And then subs for number three. And yours are one is subs.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is speakers, the sensitivity and dynamics. And then number three is image quality or image size,
Mm-hmm.
video image.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we weren't that far off.
No, we're in the same trajectory. I'm writing it out on the chat.
What do you think? Why do you think people gravitate towards equipment first? Do you think
No,
that's
I mean that was
marketing?
something that was on my mind as well. Like none of us said. Well, we kind of did because we said reference capable subs and reference capable speakers, but we didn't say like, hey, you have to have like a source player that plays this or an
Mhm.
AVR of this quality or an amp of this quality. Like that's not where we've ended up after this time of an experience that we've had.
Mm-mm.
But I I think because it doesn't matter that much is the bottom line. Like if I replaced my AV10 with a $1,000 Onkyo receiver or a $600 Onkyo receiver, you might be hard pressed to tell the difference. Besides a few
Mhm.
less channels. I mean, truly.
Well,
So,
my point with it was I see all the time on AVS
mm-hmm,
people. I frequent the speaker forum a lot. And a very common question that comes up is I can't hear my center channel.
mm-hmm,
I want to get a bigger one to fix the problem.
mm-hmm.
Why do we have this idea that changing a piece of equipment is going to solve our problem somehow? Is it because as the United States, and I think we're very consumer driven, right? It's a very consumer driven society. I mean, people like shopping, they like buying things. That's kind of where our mind goes. Is it because when you talk to dealers, they want to sell you something? And if you try and tell them, oh, you need acoustic treatments and you need to fix the room, that's not really improving their bottom line? Or is it because it's not sexy to you, right? Buying a pretty speaker and stuff it's pretty. It's like buying a sport, well, kind of, but it's nice to look at. You get an acoustic treatment, it's not, I don't know, to most people, it's not going to be the coolest thing in the world. So what do you think the reason is that we're trying to jam a square peg into a round hole all this time? And that's where the majority of people's minds go.
I guess in my estimation, and this is one thought, it's not the thought, but one thought would be that it's lack of knowledge. So I was in that same camp
Mhm.
from probably 2004 to 2010 or 2011 or something like that, where I went through a bunch of different center channel speakers. Like I kept buying different ones. I'd use them for a year. I was never happy with them. I'd swap them out. I was trying different companies. I went through multiple lines. I never really found one I liked it. And it wasn't because I was kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall, right? I didn't know what was wrong with them. I didn't know why I didn't like them. They just sounded kind of tinny, like tin filled, a little muddy, a little like they were basically not reference capable speakers. And I kept swapping through all these different, audiophile type center channels and trying to do
Mhm.
reference cinema with them, and it wasn't working. But I didn't really know what that meant or how to fix it. So I wasn't like necessarily trying to get the bigger, better one. I was trying to get one that didn't sound cruddy, and I didn't know how to get there.
Right.
Um, so
What
again, throwing spaghetti at the
what
wall.
resources were you using to try and fix that? Were you
AVS forum. I was asking
okay?
like, well, what would be good, or just reviews on auction sites or Yahoo or whatever I could find at the time. Like what people were saying was excellent, and then you'd get it and
Mhm.
it'd be another disappointment. That was
Yeah,
what was happening to me over and over again.
right. I mean, that happened to me over the years. You don't know what you don't know. And if you don't know, you're not going to know how to fix the problem. It's just interesting that that's where we always go. That's
Mhm.
where our mind goes to try and fix the problem. Well, this is making the sound,
Mhm.
so making it bigger or different should fix it because we
Mhm.
don't think about everything else in the room, right? We're not
Mhm.
thinking about it. That's interesting. The my
Mhm.
green screen. Um, we don't think about anything else that's out there that is very well impacting the sound. But if you were like out in a forest and you yelled, or you're out in the snow and you yelled and you heard it different, you'd
Mhm.
immediately say, oh, well, it's all of this stuff that's making it sound different. But
Mhm.
when we put it into a room, the vast majority of people, especially when they're starting out, are going to go, well, I just need a different speaker. That's what's making it
Mhm.
sound bad. They don't think about the room. It's interesting to me psychologically how if you're in one environment you think one way, and if you're
Mhm.
in a different environment you think a different way entirely.
Mhm.
So um, that's interesting to me about how and why that occurs. And it's also interesting to me that as people become more and more, I feel like if as people have been on the journey longer, instead of the pathways going like this, they start to come like this.
Yeah.
And everybody's path starts to come together. And we all start trying and wanting and going after the same things because we're realizing, oh, this is what really matters. This
Yeah.
is what I need from equipment, the experience in order to have uh, a good time. And you'd think it'd be the other way around, that it would diverge as you get more and more, and your subjectivity is allowed to play more of a part of it. But it's the complete opposite. In
Yeah.
so many things, you look at cars and stuff, everybody has different tastes. Everybody says, oh, I need this, I need this, I need this. But in this, with audio, especially, everybody, it seems like the more I'm around, and maybe it's just because I'm around people that agree with me. I don't know. Uh, that we're all coming together. Maybe we're just all wrong. Who knows?
Here, this comment is a good one for what you're talking about. Wait a minute, it moved on me. No, that's it. Where he was saying that he thought he had a problem with the center channel. He just wanted to buy a new one, but he realized it was a setup problem. Like he had it in the wrong placement versus the wall, and he was getting some
Mhm,
boundary interaction
mhm.
that fixed it.
Don't have to spend a lot of money a lot of times to
Right on
fix the
the-
problem.
I, I mean, I probably could have put it in my list today, like a measurement device and the knowledge to use it, or just to play and learn, because that's really key to having a top tier home theater, in my opinion. Is like, I mean, that's what the pros are doing. They're using the tools at their disposal. And so if you can learn those tools, like where's the best sub placement? Well, you won't really know unless you have like REW or OmniMic and you're measuring it and figuring out where the flattest response is naturally, and placing them there. Like that's the way to bring your system to the next level. Why does my center channel sound muffled? We'll take a frequency response from the seat and look what's happening. If you got some sort of null at 500 hertz, then male voices are going to sound odd. So, maybe your speaker needs to move forward, or your seats need to move some way to get out of that boundary interaction with your room.
Mhm.
So stuff like that can be addressed with measuring equipment.
It can also send you down some rabbit holes you don't need to be going down. You can do things to your room that are actually hurting it, especially on the software side, instead of improving it. And this can
Oh yeah,
happen a lot
but
of
that's
times.
just maturity and learning more
It
about
is. It
it.
is.
Mhm.
You've got to make sure that, how can I put this? When I was doing my flight sim stuff,
Mhm.
what I would always tell people when I was training them and teaching them and getting them ready for the competitions and stuff was slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? Meaning that a little goes a long way. If you do a little bit in increments and you're not just trying to rake on something and jam things in, you're going to come out ahead. And so when you look at filters and PEQ and all of this stuff, I think it's really important that you do a little bit at a time
Mhm.
instead of doing, oh, I need to flatten this frequency response out entirely, right? I need to make this as completely flat as possible. There's actually a tool inside of Trinov, inside the optimizer, where you can tell it, I only want to treat things if they're X octave wide.
Mhm.
They have to be over this in breadth
Mhm.
in order for me to address them.
Mhm.
Because if you start addressing every little thing,
Right.
while it may look really flat and pretty,
It's
it's
not in the
going to
next seat.
sound like garbage.
Yes.
Even in your same, you're going to create phase problems. You're going to create all kinds of issues that a frequency response is not going to tell you. And you're just going to
A
be,
one position frequency response. Yes.
yeah. And it's just going to be a nightmare. So less is more in a lot of situations. Simple. Don't try and, you know, make it perfect. We are not perfect, and we don't like things to sound perfect. It sounds unnatural. Uh,
Palindrome guy said it's not like you would call your buddy and be like, check out this new acoustic treatment I got. It's going to be more like, check out this new subwoofer I got, or this
that is
new
true.
speaker I got, new
Or
TV I got,
in
whatever.
Doug's situation, hey, look how I can make drywall fall off my ceiling. Or in Jonathan's situation, hey, remember how I was talking about replacing the floor in my kitchen? Watch this. And here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah,
I'm kind of catching up with the comments. I wasn't really watching them. Were you
there
to see if
hasn't
we had
been a
any
ton of
questions?
stuff. There hasn't been a ton of stuff. But guys, we are going to answer questions. If we don't get a whole lot of them, we'll just do a nice short stream. Not every stream has to be 3 hours, though I'm more than happy to stay and chat for a while. How's your room going? While I give people some time to ask questions if they do have any. Have you made any
I haven't
changes?
made any changes probably since the last time we talked, like
QL
a couple weeks ago.
3000 doing well?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Is it mounted?
It is. It's well, you can kind of see. Let's see if I can point to it.
I can see it.
The top one's the QL3000, and right below it is the NZ500. So I've got them both hooked up and playing with them a little bit.
Are they both mounted?
No, the
Oh,
NZ500 is on a box on a
mm.
table, just upright.
You are selling that NZ, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody needs an NZ, NZ500,
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan has one. So no other changes. You and I
No.
talked about lighting a little bit
Yeah.
and Home Assistant.
Yeah.
Uh, did you
Which
carpet
I'm
your?
well. Let's talk about why we had that conversation. When we went over to Ryan's last night, he turned on the projector, and at the same time that you turned on your projector, there was like a fancy light that came on, kind of like a spotlight thing that came on and lit the seating area,
Mhm.
and like kind of spotlighted the 50, spotlighted the couching, the little area a little bit. And I just thought it was kind of interesting because it was like you turned it on and that came on when the projector image came on, that came on, which was ironic in two senses, right? In most cases there's not enough light output from a projector that when someone turns on the projector they want the lights to come off, but Ryan has
It
so much
didn't care.
light output it just doesn't even
You
matter.
can't talk anymore, okay? It's not just me. I don't even know how many nits you're putting onto that screen.
Well,
And
375 is what we
you're
determined.
brighter than mine.
It's a lot and it's fun.
Ah. So he always makes it out to be like, "Oh, well, Ryan's got all this light," and he's like, "I got
You're
375."
not running your projector anywhere near 100% laser, so you
No,
have as
but
much as you want.
still, don't make this out to be like it's just Ryan one man doing the brightness thing. It's definitely not.
No,
But
I
yes,
like it. I'm like Bob had said the other day, you kinda spoiled me on it because
yeah.
I'll tell you, I mean, I was using this QL3000 for a couple weeks, right? And it's 6,000 lumens, it's like 335 nits. In SDR, it's just dang bright. It's fun.
You're watching SDR at 375 nits.
Oh, yes.
Do you want your kids to be able to see as they move into adulthood?
That's what I'm telling you, like, we watched Jurassic Park at that, and it was fantastic because, like, light things are bright. It's really bright, and it works really good for that movie. Really, really good. So then after a couple weeks, just turned on the NZ500 the other night, and just even the Apple TV menu, it's like a third of bright, and you're like,
I'm
dun,
just
dun, dun,
imagining you
dun.
just going, just turning away.
I just wish there could be one that would do both, and maybe your new lens will get there, but it's
We'll
hard to do
see.
it without spending huge money.
Yeah.
We have the JVC contrast and the Epson brightness. A mix of that would be wonderful.
Yeah, that's a big ask. I mean, you could eclipse, but
$400,000.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. How big's your screen, Jonathan? Christian's
116,
asking.
116.
116?
at 16 by 9. It's a 144
Yeah.
CinemaScope.
Okay.
So
This is
over
a good question, by
zoomed
the way.
at 235 to CinemaScope, it's a 152, but it zoomed down, it's 116. So it's 56 inches tall.
Once you go brightness, there ain't no go back.
Yeah, I mean the Apple menu is like, well, you saw it. Your Kaleidoscape menu is the same way. It's just glorious. Like
So
you turn
we
it
were
on,
giving Jonathan crap
angels sing.
last night because he doesn't like any movie.
I do. You guys
No,
always say that. I do.
no.
I'm
So I am convinced that Jonathan does not watch any movies. All he does, and listen to him talk, all he talks about is like the Kaleidoscape menu, the Apple TV menu, YouTube clips, demos. Like that's it. I am convinced you go down to your theater, and this is why Megan complains, is because you go down to your theater and for 3 hours you just stare at the Apple TV menu.
I've watched 5 or 6 movies in the last 2 weeks, so you know that's not the case.
Just you imagine it, but you're really staring at the Apple TV menu. That's all you're doing. All you're
I
doing.
I do a lot of Apple TV. I do my music through Apple TV.
So
So
anyway,
you're in that menu all the time. It's
we
beautiful.
got on this topic because you asked about lighting. So to
Yeah.
give people an understanding about what I'm doing, Kaleidoscape has the ability to output what it does. So if you pause it, it'll send out a command or API that'll say, "Hey, I've paused it." If you play, it'll say, "Hey, I played." It has metadata that'll say, "Hey, I'm in the credits." And so when you do that, and I tell Home Assistant to watch that, it can grab those commands and then execute on them for triggers. So it can do it natively with Lutron. So if you have Lutron, you can do all of that natively in Kaleidoscape without anything else. If you have an IP control system such as Control 4, RTI, Crestron, any of those, they should have drivers that allow them to look at that stuff. But if you have Home Assistant, which is free, and it's pretty easy to set up if you have any type of IT know-how at all, and there's instructions on the Home Assistant website, so you don't even need to know how to that. Just interact with a computer and maybe a server. If you set it up, you're just creating triggers, if then statements. And for anybody that doesn't know, an if then statement is essentially if this happens, then do this. If this happens, then do this. And that's all you're doing. So you're telling Home Assistant, hey, if you see this, do this. And if you see this command that's a little bit different, like maybe it's playing. So if I say, if it starts playing, turn the lights off. If you see pause, turn the lights on. If you see off, turn the lights on for 5 minutes. And then after 5 minutes, turn them off, because that means I've turned the system off and I just want 5 minutes to get everybody out of the theater. So it's those little things. And the more I've said this a couple times already, the more I do these things, the more I've realized about the little things and the things that actually matter. The little things like that don't seem like they're that big of a deal are super nice, because I don't worry about lighting anymore. It just does it for me. I'm picking content. If somebody needs to go to the bathroom, I just hit pause, lights come up, they walk out. We just leave it that way until they come back, hit play, lights turn off, and we're back in. And it feels like you're in a theater, because that's part of kind of what the theaters do. And the other cool thing that you can do with it is you can apply, at least with the Philips Hue ones, you can apply a transition where you can tell it, hey, fade in or fade out over X time. So the lights just don't go instant on, instant off. They'll fade off or they'll fade on. And it just increases the ambience.
Look at what my daughter said here. Apparently she's watching upstairs. That's my 16-year-old. She's always smacking my wrist because I'm trying to go into menus to fix things or to test things and change things.
That would drive me nuts.
Yeah.
You really do that?
Admittedly, of course.
Jonathan, no, I don't like doing that. The only time I will ever do that is if something doesn't work. Like if the movie won't turn on or we don't have sound or the subs aren't on, then I'll go do it. But I don't sit there and like, oh my gosh, it's too bright, or I need to adjust the black level, or it sounds a little too hot, or whatever. I'm just let it go.
If something's
Evelyn, I'm right there
I
with
haven't
you.
seen before, you got to tinker. I like to tinker. I like changing settings and see what I like. Dude, Ryan's like, I'm not watching a movie over your
I'm
house.
not.
It's
I'm
off.
not. I'm not. I'm not. Hold on, guys. We got to stop it here. So this looks just a little wrong, or that bass note. I haven't seen this movie before, but that bass note just didn't sound right.
Yeah, I do tinker. But if I have guests over, I usually don't. Like, in fact, we had a family from church over, and we watched that crappy movie called what is it called? The cat
Godzilla?
movie, Flow. We watched Flow, and frame interpolation was off because Sheldon had been over recently and made me turn it off, and I hated that it was off, and I let it go because I didn't want to pull up the menus when the people were there. So I'm not terrible when I have guests, but if it's my family, yeah,
Oh, the suffering you must have gone through not having motion interpolation on.
it
Oh
is
my
awful,
gosh.
especially on animated
Uh,
content. Awful.
I'm just imagining you sitting on your hands, sweating profusely
Biting my tongue.
as you can't turn it on, and Evelyn looks over at you, and you're trying to restrain yourself, and you got a little bit of blood coming out because you're actually biting your tongue,
Yeah.
and it's just you can't. Ugh,
By the
no.
way, chat, if you guys were telling us, some of the guys on the crawl were telling us how good Flow was, and even Ryan Kramer was saying how good Flow is. That's a bad movie. Have you seen it yet?
I haven't seen it.
It's really
Now I'm
bad.
gonna have to go watch it. It's
You
called
should watch
Flow?
it and tell me what you think.
Hold
Flow.
on.
It's an animated movie.
Alright,
And I
Flow?
remember one of the guys on the crawl, somebody was saying one of the guys on the crawl was saying, like, it was such a good movie, it made him cry, like, it's an emotional masterpiece.
So um is it on streaming?
I expected Wild Robot is what I expected, equivalent, and it was there was no Wild Robot.
Well, is it on streaming, or how'd you watch
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
What
I think I
service?
watched on Plex, actually, there's one.
Evelyn is just raking you over the coals. Worse, he switches projectors mid-movie.
I've told you guys I've done that before. I will pause it, and I will switch the projector out, and we'll watch the other half of the movie with, the other
So,
projector.
Evelyn, this is what you do. You say, "Dad, this movie's on streaming. You can watch it down here. I'm just gonna watch it upstairs."
On the little 2.5-inch tall Poke speakers upstairs?
Well, I mean, I don't
Even she's
know.
not on board with that.
You're changing the projector mid-movie.
It doesn't take long. It's a cheap mount, push it up there, slide it forward, lock it in.
Oh my
Switch
gosh,
to
you're actually
HDMI cable.
taking the projector down. You're not just turning one off and turning one on. You
No, I did that quite a few
Jonathan.
times.
Oh.
With the old JVC RS2100 and the LS12000, I did that quite a few times.
So, you said you had somebody come over Thursday. We had
Yeah,
the mutual guest last Thursday.
Astro, uh-huh,
And then we had this was last Thursday, not yesterday, not
uh-huh.
this Thursday. And then you had somebody on Friday, and then
Yes,
you had somebody on Saturday.
n wait a minute, we only had 2 in that time
Okay, so
frame, so
Friday
yeah,
and Saturday, or
yeah,
Friday or
we had a
Thursday and Friday.
family friend from work over on Saturday night, I think, so
I'm
Thursday.
imagining that when you don't have home theater guests come over, you just walk upstairs and it's like one of those TV shows where your family's sitting in dread as you come up the stairs, inevitably to pick one of them to go down and be one of your guests down in your theater.
Well, I do have some declines when I ask them to help me test something for sure. Like, it's routine.
Oh, nobody wants to. I asked my wife to help me with um, fiber. So she helped me connect some switches with some fiber interconnects. And I always get that look,
Yeah,
the wife look
yeah,
of,
I know that look well.
yeah. But she wasn't having to lift anything. The worst is when I ask her to help me like mount a TV or something, then then it's over. I don't even do that anymore. But yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember how we got onto this topic. And then I just started making fun of you and how you are just testing stuff mid-movie.
I I would question anyone's enthusiasm card who hasn't done that at least once. They should. You should. If you have it, you need to do it. Well, you don't have the ability really in your room,
With
but
what? Oh,
with the
changing
crystal,
projectors?
you can't easily swap yours. Like, it's
No.
in the wall. Yeah.
Yeah. Hold on, guys. I need 3 hours. Just sit tight. I'll be right back. We're gonna get something else.
And
Hey,
your
can you
projector
help
weighs
me
how
change
many
it?
hundreds
Can
of
you help me
pounds?
change that? Hey,
Yeah, yeah.
Jonathan, can you come help me change this? I got 3 hours. They're gonna sit in the theater while I change it, and then we're gonna restart the movie. No, that's not
No,
gonna
it's
happen.
so much easier with just, like, the chief mount because it's literally, like, pop it in, move it forward, and just flip the switch.
Yeah, but
So
you
I
have
can
2
change it out in like
projectors sitting
I can
there.
change it out in like 3 minutes. Honestly, good timing. It's like a F1 car. I'm used to it now. It's just like boop, boop, flip, you're done.
I'm
Unflip it, bring it back, drop it.
I'm
They're
I'm
50 pounds.
imagining Evelyn looking at your wife and going, "No, that's not what happens. It's
It
not what
is what
happens
happened.
at all."
Yeah, yeah.
I'm waiting to hear the real response from your daughter. Megan's gonna chime in here in a second. My wife will probably chime in here in a minute and say how I'm terrible or something like that. But let's go
Mm.
to there's a question, and Jonathan, this is directed towards you. So you really like the QL3000.
I really
Is it
like the
worth
bright
$15,000?
You're killing me here. I really like it, yes. Is it worth $15,000 is really subjective, and to be fair, I didn't pay that. Now, I'm not gonna go into that detail, but here's the thing. It's super bright, 6,000 lumens. It's like 3 times brighter than most of the projectors you've seen, and it's 3 times brighter, but the contrast ratio is 3,000 to 1. So if you're used to, like, it'll be better than a DLP's native contrast typically. It'll be worse than like a LS12000 or a Sony's model or JVC as far as native contrast. So there's a trade-off, and you have to decide if that trade-off's worth to you. I'll tell you, like, you watch something that's older, like Jurassic Park, for instance. We watched that the other night. I keep going back to that. It was such an
You do.
incredible presentation because it has dark scenes in there, but it's in the old style where it's not like super dim and dark. Like modern stuff is super dim and dark.
Mhm.
In the old days, 1980s, 1990s, 2000s, when they filmed a dark scene, there was still bright highlights in the scene. Like they would light
Mhm.
up the actors' faces. There was never anything like those on the beach scenes from the House of Dragons where it's like 2 or 3 nits the whole time of the scene. That just didn't exist. They didn't have that. There was no capability to play that kind of stuff. So it didn't exist. So in movies where that doesn't exist, that QL3000 just is amazing. But if you're going to watch something like House of Dragons, you're probably going to be a little disappointed because it's not going to look too dim and dark and murky because the QL series elevates the black floor content. Like, what would be the right terminology for this? It elevates the entire scene. We saw this even on the 1917 staircase with the QL
Mhm.
7000 at our shootout. How it,
Mhm.
it elevates all the details to get it out of that native black floor of 3000 to 1 so you can see the contrast, you can see the image, you can see the details, but it changes the mood of the scene, or it changes the like time of the scene, if you will. So like that 1917 staircase is a perfect example. That's supposed to be at night with no light indoors. It should be very, very dark. But the HDR tone mapping on the QL series brings that up to get it out of the black floor limitations and raises the detail level to where it's like, what would you say, like 8:30 at night or something? Like there's actually ambient light in the room instead of just being dark. So
Mhm.
that's not necessarily going to be a terrible thing for some people. We had people kind of mixed emotion on that in our shootout, where some people said like, this is great because I can actually see what's going on in the scene. Like I prefer this, was what's one of the comments was from one of the guests. And other people were like, that's not at all what the artist intended or the director intended. So I don't like this at all. You kind of, I'm not going to tell you which is right or wrong or what you would like or don't like. I'm just telling you what it is. And you kind of make your decision on what you prefer. You'll see everything. Like it'll bring those details out of that 3001 contrast where you can see it, but it kind of does change the mood of the scene. So yes, I like it a lot. Is it worth $15,000? That's a subjective choice. I can't tell you that. I like it a lot. I can tell you that.
I think it's a subjective choice, and it comes down to what your room needs too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that projector is not conducive for every room and every screen. I mean, if you had a 120-inch screen, I mean, you could probably get away with less light output because you're going to get that brightness. But at the same time, with less light output, you're going to get more contrast. You're going to get more dynamic range. You're going to get that stuff back. So it depends on what you're trying to overcome and what subjectively your end goal is. If
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to get the brightness, like what Jonathan is,
Mm-hmm.
he may lose his vision in 5 years, but he's going to enjoy it while he does it. I'm just imagining your kids telling their kids, answering the question of, "Mommy, why can't you see?" I'm like, "Well, my dad would watch this projector, and every time I would just feel a sizzle coming across my eyes as things were up so bright." And I'm joking. I watch it
Yeah.
314 nits, so I'm right
Yeah.
there with him. It's I no way will I go back. I mean,
It's really hard. I mean, I'm telling you the truth. Like when I went from that QL3000 after using it for a couple weeks, and I turned on the JVNZ 500, and we're just on the Apple menu. Like when you first boot it up and you just got the thing, it really was kind of like, man, that's how I've watched projectors for 20 years, like that dim, because you're used to so much brighter. Like it really kind of sticks in your memory. Unfortunately,
Mhm.
it's hard to kick out of
And
there.
it's people are gonna say, the calibrators are gonna say, "Well, you're losing dynamic range, and if its image is dimmer and you have a greater dynamic range, then that's the proper way to do it." Subjectively, I just like the brightness. I
Hmm.
like the brightness, and with a scene that is I don't like the super dark scenes, regardless of what they are. I don't like them because they're hard to see.
Hmm.
Even on my JVC, when I had the NZ9 or an NZ900 in the room, I just don't like those scenes. But when you get a movie like you're talking about from the 90s
Hmm.
or the early 2000s, or you get a movie like my favorite demo scenes lately have been um, for dynamic range are Pacific Rim
Hmm.
and Godzilla. And
Hmm.
the scenes are dark, but there's a lot of really bright elements that allow the HDR to play into it.
Hmm.
And it allows ANSI to come through. So I
Hmm.
think what we're seeing is at least me, I'm liking and transitioning away from saying native contrast is everything and
Hmm.
moving more towards ANSI is really what I want because I just get more value out of it, especially if you're getting the brightness for the HDR to work. And I can't go back. I may look at a scene and there was a dark scene on, like at the beginning of Warfare, the dark scene where they're going through the city, and I'm like, yeah, this could be blacker. It's kind of
Sure.
gray right now, but then as soon as the lights come on, I stopped caring. I immediately
Sheldon and I
forgot about
talked about that a little bit. The entire rest of the movie, I noticed like no issues at all with the contrast ratio. Yours is about 5,000 to 1 right now, right?
it. Yeah.
Like I noticed nothing. In that beginning scene that you pointed out and you noted, like, all right, this is where my projector is not the best, but wait till you see the rest type thing. Like that was my experience too. I mean, I thought like I was telling Sheldon like everything looked fantastic beyond that one little scene. That one little scene didn't look bad, you know, like it wasn't an OLED, but okay, it's a beautiful image otherwise. And that's
Mhm.
kind of how I feel about the QL3000. Like the minority of scenes might be not as good as other choices, but gosh dang, that brightness is rewarding in itself. And I don't think there's a one size fits all. Like I don't think everyone's gonna have the same opinion. We've already
No.
proven that out in our Kansas City group. Like some of the guys, like my friend Sheldon and my friend Tim are both like, I'm all JVC all the way. You know, that's just their choice. And
And
they've seen these things,
and I
but that's
think
okay.
if you get a JVC, if you get a NZ500
Hmm.
onto a small enough screen where it can get that bright, it will win every single time. No question, right? If you can get the brightness back.
You mean if you were bright mess matching them, basically?
No, not necessarily if you were bright. Well, if you shrunk the screen size down in order to get the brightness back, or potentially if you gave it a positive gain screen, right? You may be able to get some of that
May
back.
Maybe, but how do you gain 3 times the brightness? That's my question mark there.
Well, I don't know. I'm just saying that
If you I think your analogy is fair if you say, if I brightness match these, if I run my Epson at 30% laser and you run the JVC at 100% laser, the JVC is gonna smash it, right? Because then now they're about the same brightness and you got the better contrast.
what
But
I'm saying
that's
is
not how you use it.
if I was on a 120-inch screen, I wouldn't buy an Epson. I wouldn't get a
But I
QL.
am, and I'm enjoying it a lot. I
But
mean,
you're on a 140 some
well, it depends on if I'm
CinemaScope
over
screen.
zoom or under zoom.
Yeah,
If I'm
I'm saying CinemaScope. I'm not saying
Mhm,
16 by 9.
mhm.
So if I'm on a 120, I'm gonna get a
16 by 9.
JVC. I'm
Yeah,
gonna get
yeah,
a JVC
yeah.
because it's gonna be bright enough. Now, would the NZ500 be bright enough given what I'm used to now? I don't know, but you've gotta get the equipment that makes sense in the room,
Mhm,
right? So I think it also depends on the individual. I don't know how we got off on this tangent. I guess it was because I was making fun of you with projectors. But you got to get what makes sense in the room. MW Christie M4K 15 2700 to 1. That is without the ultra high contrast lens. I think it's actually higher than that with the normal lens. The ultra high contrast lens you can get up to 6,000 to 1, and that's not a modified lens on the M4K15. Which
Yeah, I mean,
Godzilla movie? The Godzilla versus Kong, specifically the scene when he is fighting Kong in Kaleidoscape. It's called Tokyo Round 2. What were you going to say, Jonathan?
oh, I'm just reading some of the comments. It's okay. I'll catch up here.
Ryan has a question specifically about the QL. Did you see that one?
Yeah, I'll go to that, but this is funny. Reese is like, you have to prove it. Yeah, you have to prove you can swap that out in 30 seconds. I can do it, man. I can do it.
He did say 3 minutes, not 30 seconds.
That's better. I better say 3 minutes.
He's going to drop it. We're going to put him on there. He's going to
Can't-
try. He's going to
find
try and
all-
sit it on one of my chairs, and the chair is going to collapse and
Yeah,
it's going to fall. And then the Apple TV remote's going to get stuck, and the speakers are going to turn on. And then Jonathan's head is going to spontaneously combust from dropping a projector and the volume being too high.
yeah. So there's a few comments, but I'm just going to star them here since we're on this topic right now.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan G says you don't use the dynamic mode on the QL, right? I I've tried to calibrate that, Ryan. I don't have Ryan G. I don't have calibration tools for video. I just have it for audio. So I just was using my like iPhone and some sort of like RGB picker app to kind of like try to do the white balance point and stuff. And it didn't work out very good when I was trying it with my phone. So I need to get Ryan over here with his Jetty and like take a look at it and see what we can do. Dynamic mode out of the box on this one is not great.
Not very
So
well calibrated. It doesn't mean that it's a bad mode. It just means it needs to be calibrated.
yeah, and dynamic mode was absolutely preferred on the LS 12,000, and it also wasn't very good, but there was enough like kind of general form guidance to get you the right place. This QL 3000 is and the QL 7000 isn't very many hands yet, so it doesn't have any just general guidance out there to get you to a close enough point. And yes, the dynamic mode on the QL, just like the LS 12,000, is supposed to be like stronger, more aggressive laser dimming, all that kind of stuff. So it should be a noticeable improvement when I get a chance to do that. I just haven't messed with it. And cinema mode looks really good on the QL 3000, so I've just been using cinema mode. But yes, dynamic mode should improve contrast a little bit further. At the end of the day, it's dynamic contrast, not native, but it does improve.
MW says, because I mentioned the contrast difference, and he says, you're right. UHC is 6,001, which is twice the Epson. And he says, having seen the Christie, I could never live with the Epson native after seeing it.
Sure,
And
that's
my
fair.
argument with that is, while maybe that's true, the Christie is double the price of the QL 7,000.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a compromise. You're compromising now on money, and you have to figure out, am I willing to spend double the money in order to get that contrast back? Go to DLP, sharp, that stuff. Not that the QL is super sharp anyway.
Yes.
Or do I spend less and get a lower native and a lower ANSI? Right? These are the compromise. I tell everybody, and anytime we're building a theater, is there is going to be compromise. We just have to figure out which way that is. You can compromise on equipment, taking less performance, or you can spend more, right? Because I tell them this because inevitably everybody becomes conflicted. Like, I don't know what to do. This is obviously better, but it's more expensive. And then you just have to tell them, like, how much does this matter to you? Are you
Mm-hmm.
one of those people that is going to, like I am? I've gone into Micro Center so many times because I need something specific. And I go there trying to find a cheaper solution because I don't want to spend the money. And then what always happens is I get the cheaper solution, or I listen to somebody else that says, oh, you could do it this way. And I'm never satisfied. I either have to take that thing back, wasting time, or I have to just eat the loss. And I end up spending more time and more money instead of just buying the more expensive one outright. Now, that's not always the right solution. I'm just the type of person that always wonders, how could this have been if I would have done it this way? What am I missing? And that will eat at me and nag at me nonstop. So have figured out that I just have to bite the bullet, unfortunately, in a lot of situations.
Let's talk about this one a second, because I don't think that's a de facto answer, MW. We did a shootout in Kansas City, and we talked about it a little bit on here with all the guys at one point a couple weeks back. We did a shootout in Kansas City of the Bravia 9, the NZ900, and the Epson QL 7000, and this is on a 200-inch screen. So I'm not going to counter if you'd rather have a smaller screen. That's up to you. But we did it on a 200-inch screen. And this was at Chirpy's room, and you would almost think I would have predicted going in there that NZ900 would have had the lion's share of the people's vote. Like that. That's obvious conclusion foregone. It wasn't the way it worked out. In that room, it was about a 50-50 split of who liked the QL 7000 versus the NZ900. And so, like, if you put a smaller screen, I'm not sure that the trajectory changes that much because that QL 7000 in here on the 116-inch size at 100% laser was blow away, like unforgettable. There's like probably close to 800 nits in here.
Yeah, maybe.
There's something really attractive to that much brightness. I mean, if you go to an OLED screen in your room, they don't drop the nits because the screen size goes big. It's not like the 97-inch OLED has a lesser nit rating than the 65-inch OLED. They both just do 1,000 nits or whatever. They're both targeting the same level, right? So I don't know that it's like I don't
While
know that it's
that's
so
true, you're
clear.
not giving up ANSI or native contrast in that analogy. They're the same. OLED to OLED, they're not any different. It's still the
But
same.
it's not. But I'm just saying, like the 97-inch OLED isn't saying like, all right, we're going to only run this at 500 nits because 1,000 nits is too bright. They're still targeting like the G series OLEDs are still targeting 1,000 nits, right? The G series
Mhm.
97-inch OLED. I
I
mean,
mean,
they're
I don't
still
know specifically what they're doing. Yeah, you're not getting rid of the brightness. It's still
yeah,
just as
they're
bright.
not toning it down because it's a bigger image. Now, I also say, and I said this in the last podcast we talked about this. There is a level of subjective perceived contrast that happens with human eyes, and I don't know it's the same for everyone. But as the image brightens up, in my opinion, the contrast stops mattering as much because your pupils are dilating to watch that image and the blacks seem blacker. So that QL 7000, even though the contrast would be arguably bad objectively, my human eyes didn't notice the contrast was bad. Like it was fantastic in here. I mean, like unforgettable in here.
Well, your
At
ANSI is where it comes into that point, and they're actually a lot more even than people think they are. They've
Mhm.
historically been much more even. A lot of times the
Epson
Epson
has been
in the
ahead of the
previous
JVC
generation has been
historically
ahead. Yeah.
on ANSI.
People yeah. Native's important, right? If I could I'm gonna take kind of the another side of this. If I could sacrifice a little bit of brightness to gain that native contrast back, I would. No question.
Sure. I would say the same thing on the QL 3000. That's fair, but I don't think it's I. It cannot be that everyone would just choose the JVC like blanket because they objectively should because that's not what was proved out. Like when we had the crawl here, I had several people tell me that they liked this Epson better than the JVCs on the crawl, and an NZ500 was on the crawl, and an NZ8 or NZ8 was on the crawl. So it's not just a universal, hey, everyone will prefer that darker image with better native contrast. Some
Mhm,
people really appreciate that bright image. And so,
mhm,
you sort of pick your poison, so to speak.
mhm. Yeah. I like it. It's addicting. It's I can't go back. No question.
There are certain pieces of content, and I think we've been very fair on this. Like when I show off the QL 3000 at the Kansas City crawl, and when I show it to people, I show its strengths and its weaknesses. Like I'll show like here's an OLED demo, here's where you get that gray Epson black floor. This is the worst that you're going to see out of it, and I'll show something that will really highlight its function, like something that's real bright and bushy tailed, and like really show it off. So I'll show it the plus and negative, and there's certain types of content that you'd rather watch on a JVC, and there's certain kind of content you'd rather watch on an Epson. So that's my thoughts. I
Yeah.
don't think it's a one-way street.
No, it's very subjective. People will say it's a one-way street, and dynamic range is important. And I think all things considered, if you could say if they were equal brightness, the
Mhm.
one with the better native contrast or dynamic range is going to win, no question. Like that's
Mhm.
a given. But I think there needs to be a certain level or weight put on how important things just being brighter are. I mean,
Mhm.
as dumb as it is, a lot of people just want it bright. That's it could be horrifically inaccurate and they will still prefer the brighter image.
Here's something that always kind of comes to mind a little bit on my mind too. I've had projectors, like I say, so for 25 years almost at this point, and I've never had projectors that are brighter than my TVs. So like you bring out your laptop monitor, the laptop screen looks brighter than the projector. Always, always. For me. The OLED I'm sitting in front of right now, the 42-inch OLED, looks brighter than the projector. Always. That's no longer the case with this QL3000. Now, when I pull up my laptop, the projector is brighter than my laptop. Like I look at the laptop and it looks dim at 100% brightness. I look at my OLED and it looks dim at 100% brightness. So like it's a different level than what you're used to seeing on projectors. And until you see it, I'm not sure you can just outright say like I would have a preference. And you can have a preference. You might prefer the JVC after seeing it, but I don't think it's. I'm just saying it's not as one way street as you might originally think.
And to reiterate, I understand that the Epson and the Christie are lacking in certain respects. Like a JVC at 15,000, 20,000, 25,000 to 1 native contrast, it's trouncing
Mm-hmm.
the other projectors. But for whatever reason, and I don't have an explanation for this because I don't know the psychology behind it, but you get into a bright image and there is something that just makes it irreplaceable. Like the crawl, and I mentioned this in the write up and I've mentioned this before. The Epson was the only one that got an audible reaction
Not at the crawl, at the shootout,
at the
right?
shootout.
At the
Sorry,
comparison, where we had
at
the
the
three
comparison.
flagships compared. Yeah. Did you pause or did I pause? I think we lost Ryan. But what he's talking about is that our flagship comparison, where we did the Bravia 9 and the Epson QL7000 and the JVC NZ900, when the QL7000 came on, it was the only one that received like the audible gasps in the room. Like people were like, "Holy smokes, that's bright!" Because like literally, like side by side, when we were testing this, the Epson's the lowest setting it could do on that QL7000 was 30%, and its 30% was brighter than the JVC or the Sony. Like you couldn't even get the Epson down to the same brightness as the JVC or Sony at their highest 100% brightness. So, uh, uh, like there were people at that comparison that said I'm all JVC. There were people at that comparison that said I'm all Epson, but it was about a 50-50 split, and we had about a dozen people there. So again, going in, I would have thought there'd be a vast majority that would have said JVC, but that was not the case. The case was that it was about a 50% split. Okay, so I'm going to kind of go through these comments as Ryan joins back in. Scrolling down. Kevin Orr says, this is changing topics a little bit. Do you upconvert your audio when the mix is 5.1 or do you listen to the native track? What setting do you use on your AV10? I upmix almost everything, almost universally. Let's see, Ryan's messaging me here. Let's see what he says. Power went out, so he'll join when he can. I upmix almost everything almost all the time. There are examples where that's probably not necessarily ideal, and I can give you a specific one. The end of one of the Hobbit movies, when there's like a music track and it's a beautiful song, the upmixing on that doesn't sound as good as just the DTS Master 5.1. So sometimes if I'm catching it or if I'm doing demo and testing, like I'm like playing with the controls as my kids hate, I'll switch back and forth and see which one I like. There are occasions where upmixing doesn't sound as good, but the vast majority of the time, in my opinion, upmixing is preferred. So I use it as a rule. And Dolby Surround is my choice. I can hear you again, Ryan. You're back on.
I don't know how I feel about this one. So you like upmixing?
I do it 95% of the time.
When the main example that I have with this one is I was Fury on the Kaleidoscape. Oh, the Apple lady thought I was talking to her. Fury on the Kaleidoscape was up until last year 5.1. And I actually preferred the 5.1 mix over upconverting it. I just liked how it sounded. The upconversion did something weird with the low frequencies, and it was just I didn't like it. I definitely don't mix any of the 2-channel stuff. That's all native. You do, I think, if I remember
Absolutely.
right. This weirdo.
Absolutely.
Weirdo.
When we were over there last night, I was thinking I wanted to tell you to upmix it, but your system,
No.
your rules.
No.
You were listening
No.
to 2-channel. I was like, upmix this stuff.
No. There is no upmixing. None of that. Native. Native.
Little room for subjective preferences here for sure.
No, you're wrong. You're wrong. Absolutely. Ryan
It's
saying,
rare. I think it's really rare to find something that doesn't sound better upmixed. That's my
Ryan, what is this name? RWK Studios? Has he always been called that? I feel like that's a different name.
Well, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Ryan Kramer.
Oh,
I
maybe
feel
he
like
made a
that's your new
YouTube
name.
channel.
Did you make a YouTube channel? What is that? The logo's been the same, the avatar, but the name's different, I feel like. What is that? So I don't upmix. Not gonna happen. Was that Palindrome's guy or no? No. This is on the Denon. We were talking about AV10s. So Marantz now Palindrome guy asking, I'm a Denon fanboy. Why don't they or many others do 5.1 AVRs anymore? Or do you know of one that you would recommend? I think it's because things have gotten cheaper and people are starting to put more speakers into systems and they want to add more channels so that people will buy because a channel count is a differentiator. You have thoughts on that?
I thought they did still have a 5.1. Isn't it like a
They
7
do.
series or something? Like a SH series or something like that?
Uh,
SH 760 or
they
something like
have
that?
the SH. I think maybe the smallest X series is the 1800.
Yeah, but that's a different series. There's one series that's below the X series.
It is, but and they have 5.1, but it uses a different version of Odyssey if it has Odyssey at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a
Oh,
stripped
I mean, I
down
didn't even know they
version.
stopped doing 5.1. I thought you could still go to Costco and buy a 5.1 AVR, but maybe.
No, they still make them. There's a 5.1. I was just sticking to the X series.
Yeah. Well, the X series is kind of like almost like their more premium line, right? Over Denon's lower end line.
It's I think it's the S series is what it is on
Yeah.
Denon.
Yeah.
But they have them for sure. So Reese asked another question.
I have another comment on this. I'm going back to this thing because I'm just still catching up here. So MW says, having seen the Chris Dick and never with the Ebs and Native. MW, if you go to any commercial theater in the last 30 years of your life or whatever, you've never seen better than like 2,500 to 1 at a commercial cinema. So if you say you can't stand it, that's nonsense. Like, do you enjoy the commercial cinema? That's what they have. So, that's the lowdown there. Like, it's not. I asked specifically, we went to a Dolby Cinema theater for the night before the crawl at the Kansas City home theater crawl we had last month. And we went to, it's one of the best theaters in town, right? It's got a Dolby Laser cinema. When people over here, I asked 2 groups, like, do you think this, arbitrarily, I said, this isn't even my projector. This is a demo unit. I want to know what the people here think. Do you think this QL3000 is better than the Dolby Cinema laser projector that we saw last night for those of you who went? Both groups, 100% yes. This is a better projector than what we saw at the Dolby Cinema. So, like, put that into context here. You're saying you can't stand it. It's better than what you see at a premium local cinema. So there's that. Okay, moving on. We've kind of beat that dead horse, but I think it's important to kind of like put that all in perspective because 2001, 2,500 to 1 is all you're ever going to get at a commercial cinema.
Well,
until they do the HDR by Barco or whatever that's coming.
No, Dolby Vision has higher, but because it's an Eclipse or a pro version of an Eclipse. But you're talking about your standard, your standard theaters, your standard like IMAX and that kind of stuff. Yeah, yeah. Unless you're in something like Dolby Vision theater or something, yeah, it's gonna.
I mean, like IMAX specification was 2,500 to 1. That's what it was. So
it's hard to do those big screens, but that's what we've all seen. That's what we've all been used to, and that is the benchmark. And I think we forget the benchmark.
Yeah.
So we have a tendency to compare against everything else. Then we forget that this is actually probably closer to what it looked like on the big screen. And that's my brain just thought about that of, well, what would 1917 have looked like? Would it actually have been closer to what the Epson is representing?
I don't know how they would handle that with their tone mapping, but they have a different tone mapping version than what the consumers get anyway, right?
But I'm saying the black floor What would that have
And
looked like?
and Ryan pointed out also that whatever the laser projectors are capable of, they're also being held back by the aisle lighting and the exit signs and all that kind of nonsense that's in there.
Yeah, but you look at the specs for those projectors, and
Mhm.
their spec
Mhm.
is 25 to 3,000 to 1.
Mhm.
My Griffin,
Mhm.
if I don't use an ultra high contrast lens, 25 to 3,000 to 1.
Mhm.
That's what it will do. You get
Mhm.
an ultra high contrast lens on there, 5,000 to 1.
Mhm.
You get a modded lens on there, double that.
Mhm.
So, but that's at the expense of light, right? Because you're closing down the aperture in order to increase the contrast. So that is what the commercial guys have to weigh in order to get the huge image that they're putting on for these commercial theaters.
Mhm.
But my point is now, and I'm not going to be able to unthink about this, is yes, that is what they're doing commercially. So what is the benchmark?
Mhm.
You know, we're chasing all of this stuff with OLED and what JVC offers, and I'm not saying they're wrong because I don't know, but what is the benchmark that we should be comparing against if we want to say commercial is the benchmark? And maybe it's not.
Mhm.
I'm just saying, what is it? Because
It's
did it
it
look
doesn't
like
have
that on
to
the
be it
mastering
doesn't
model?
have to be the benchmark, but what it is kind of like the de facto standard that's been around all of our lives that we've all aspired to do for our homes. I mean, like that's what my point is, like that's what we grew up watching, that's what we've watched, that's what we've experienced, and like all of a sudden people can't you get that kind of comment all the time. I can't stand that Epson ratio, or I can't that's way too low to even be enjoyable. Well, then just discard your last 30 years of commercial cinema because none of it was as good as what the Epson is as far as like the contrast. Like that's what's in my head.
Yeah, that's a good argument. It's an interesting argument. Are there any
There's a
other
question in
questions?
here asking about the mount for the QL3000. I'm trying to
Yeah,
find
Brian Cobb. I got it.
okay.
So Brian Cobb asked Jonathan, which Chief mount are you using for the QL3000? I have one that I'm not happy with, the Chief RPA mount with my QL3000.
So Brian, I have kind of a unique situation. I just used the chief mount that came with my LS12000 with a plate that belongs to the JVCs, and my neighbor is an engineer and has like a drill press that will measure down to the fractions like 3,000 of a millimeter. And so I found the schematic for the mounting plate. I didn't find it. Someone on the forums found it for me and sent it to me when I expressed what I was wanting to do. And it had the exact like dimensions of what the holes would be drilled. So we used this drill press to fabricate the JVC plate into a QL3000 plate. And so now I just repurpose the JVC plate and it works perfect. I mean, it like, if there's ever been a project that went perfectly smoothly in my life, that was it because the holes couldn't have been any more perfect if they were prefabbed. Like it
He
was
just jinxed
amazing how
himself.
accurate that was. What's that?
Now, you just jinxed yourself. And now
No, it's already in. It works
you're
perfect.
going to be watching it.
It's going to fall
And
down.
it'll happen at our next movie night. And where it's going to just, we're going to see a shadow and the image on the screen is just going to
Oh,
fall
that'd be
and
awful.
hit
But
the
it
ground.
can't happen. It can't happen because it's a steel plate. Like, how would it fail? Maybe I should go put some Loctite on it tonight. Yeah.
Good question, but Jonathan's a cheater.
So MW has a valid point. I don't know what the ANSI is at the commercial theater. Do you? I don't know what IMAX
With
ANSI
all
commercial
of the
is supposed to
bias lighting and stuff, I would say not great. And it's the image isn't overtly bright, so I can't imagine it being amazingly high. But I don't know. I've never measured it.
and the color space, I don't know that I've ever seen that advertised either. Like what the color space is as far as the accuracy and meeting the different standards, P3 and Rec
I
709
would
and
imagine it's P3, but I
PT22.
don't know what it's actually measuring.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't
I've
know.
never seen those things
Good
ever.
question. Good question. Are we out of questions?
Brian Cobb, if you want to know the exact dimensions on that to try to drill your own, I mean, you could possibly do it without a drill press. I have some pictures on the ABS forum. Let me find that link and I'll give it to you in chat so you can try to chase that down if you want to try to. I don't know if you even have a JVC plate. I couldn't use the Epson plate. That was my original idea. But the Epson plate is shaped kind of like a triangle at the top, as you might know, and then like a triangle on top of a square. And it's not big enough because corners are missing. So it's triangle shaped, and you need mounting screws out here, but they're not. There's just free air. So the JVC plate was just a big rectangle, so it had the room to meet the mounting dimensions. And I had the JVC plate from the RS 2100 I had.
Rick Venezuela, $10 super chat. Thank you very much. Never
Thanks, Rick.
required. Always appreciated. Need a screen. Control lighting. Matte black walls. Vinyl floor. Black wood slat ceiling clouds. Worried about light reflection from the floor and cloud. What gain should I get? Slate or white, woven or perf? What
Ooh,
projector do you have?
matte black walls,
And how big
vinyl
is the
floor,
screen going to be?
black wood slat ceiling, cloud.
I want to see this room.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Sounds like a cool room, but I want to know and need to know how big the screen is and what projector it is.
Rick, some of the guys that I know and trust on ABS Forum who are into the the video side much more than me as far as knowledge and training and expertise, say that there's not very much advantage for home theater use with anything other than a white screen, because it's not like it's boosting certain areas of the contrast or whatever. You're just losing light output to get better black. And so, like, some of the guys would say Pixel Pusher 15, for instance, and Sir Master would say, hey, just lower or close your iris a little bit to get that blacker level, and you'll have better contrast for that with a white screen than you would go into no lens closure, no iris closure, and a gray screen. That's their expertise speaking. So that's one of those subjects that you're asking about.
I'd agree with that.
Now, if you're not in a light controlled room, that might change.
He said he's in
but
light
it sounds like
control.
you are.
Yeah. We just need to know the screen size and projector if you're still around. Oh, so he's got an NZ7. Center 10 feet, seating. Screen is 150 inches. So I'd say you're going to want, given my experience with brightness, I don't think you have the light output if you go with a screen of that size to do woven. You can't sacrifice the light for the woven material. So I think you're going to need to do vinyl, and you're going to be able to get maybe not, because the CI 5160 is in wall. How far away is the center from the screen? Would it be right on top of it? Is it going to be behind the screen material, or is it below the screen?
So just for perspective, I had the RS 2100, which is the same as the NZ7, and my screen is 152 inch 16 by 9 if it's over zoomed, and it was on the verge, but I liked it. I mean, it wasn't like it's unusable at that size, so 150 could work with the RS 2100.
It could work. I'm just saying, with how much I appreciate brightness now, I don't know that I would go that way. I want the brightness. I'm unwilling to sacrifice. But in certain situations, like if he has that in-wall speaker behind the screen, if he deviates more so it's behind the screen, how far is it behind the screen? If he appreciates audio more than video, woven is going to be better because it doesn't have the same interaction, or it lessens the interaction of the wave in the interacting with the wave. So you can put the woven screen closer to the speaker than you can a vinyl perf. It's a compromise. Got to figure out. This is something that I'm battling with one of my friends. We're trying to figure out what is the proper screen, because he wants 300 nits, but the screen is large enough that the QL 7000 is right on the verge of being able to do it. And so we're having to waffle in thinking about calibration and losing 10 to 15% after calibration. We're having to figure out how much can we afford to lose in order to be able to attain that target and not be at like perfect 100% laser. Because if you're at 100% laser and the laser starts to dim, which it will slowly, you're not going to have anywhere to boost. You're just going to run out of light. So ideally you'd want to be at 85, 90% so that you can push up if you were at the 300 nit target. And he's at a position where the negative gain that is brought in from a woven screen, he's just like, I don't know that I can deal with that. So he's trying to find solutions in order to make up for it. And he's looking currently, he has a Seymour XD. And the Seymour XD is like a 0.8, 0.85 measured gain. I think they say it's brighter, but I think that's actually what closer to what it measures. And if he goes down to a 0.7, he's losing all of that light. But the thing that he doesn't like about the XD is he sits close enough that he can see the weave in the XD material with the brightness that the QL is putting out. So it's about trying to figure out what ticks the most boxes and compromises on the least amount of things or on the things that you don't care about as much. So in your cases, do you care about the audio more? Do you care about the video more? What are you trying to chase in this situation? But feel free to, this is a tough question, and it's something that I think it's worth having a conversation about. Just scan that, shoot me a message, and we can talk about that going forward, because this is a tough question. There's so many variables that have to be considered that most people don't think about when they're buying a screen. And I was this way when I was buying a screen. I know I've been talking for a while. I'm
Look
like,
at this little fancy QR code
I
thing.
know, right? It's pretty
What is
cool.
this?
Yeah.
Do-do-do-do-do.
Yeah. Woo. Well, Restream does it. I've just never used it. Makes it easy. Instead of saying, hey, go to this website, just scan the code. It'll take you
Heck,
to
I
the
need that. Look at
contact
the
page.
look at the little thing behind it that I tried to link in there. Good luck clicking that or typing that in.
What a loser. What a loser. But do that code, and then we'll have a conversation. Because when I first started on this, I just bought a screen, didn't think it really mattered. And it didn't for what I was doing. But now, when you start getting into these theaters and you're trying to maximize as much as you can, it does matter. I'm off my soapbox now. What I miss? What did you? Oh, that was for Brian.
That was for
That
Brian
was the,
Cock. He was asking about
yeah,
the custom plate.
yeah, got it. There was another question. That was a good question, though. Good question, Rick. So here's one, Jonathan. Flyjock7. This is from earlier in the stream. Why is it that most people in home theater all of a sudden prefer sealed subs over ported?
I don't know if that's true in my experience. There's still a lot of people that love ported subs on AVS Forum. The simplest answer to me is that you can add more sealed subs without any kind of like drama. If you have 5 sealed subs, you can add 3 more and doesn't have any issues. If you're doing ported subs, you got to make sure your port tunes are the same. You got phase interactions with the speakers. You got port chuffing that can happen. Sealed subs are just kind of like almost like an easy button in my mind. I have no problem with ported subs. I'm not even advocating against them. As long as they're low tuned, I think they're a great option. Especially if you don't have room for a lot of quantity and you just want to have like a couple big ported subs.
For
Great,
sure.
got it.
Sealed subs are just easier to integrate.
Yeah.
Is what it comes down to. But if you're needing less is more, ported can help quite a bit. Oh, it deleted my content, my post.
Uh-oh. Rick said his phone couldn't pick up
I
your
saw
QR
that.
code.
Paul asks, why don't you guys talk much about diffusion? We don't really talk about acoustics very much at all because it's as much an art form as it is a science. If you ask 6 different people that work with acoustics all the time, you're going to get 6 different answers. So we both have quite a bit. I mean, the MadVR Experience Center, every one of the panels that you see behind me is a different level of diffusion and absorption. So it is very, very important in creating a enjoyable sound field, and it can allow you to overcome certain answers. But we don't talk about it a lot. Me personally, because I don't necessarily have the expertise to be able to provide helpful opinions on that. I can relay you to people that I think do, but I don't think I'm smart enough to be able to help.
I think you're smart enough. I think, like you said, it's an art form, and I don't know that there's like a dead right answer that everyone gravitates towards. I recently in our Kansas City group, one of the guys got like three different quotes for different like acoustic builds in their room, and they were all dramatically different from
Mhm.
three different well-established, you know, technical resources. They were opposites almost. So there's not. I mean, when you get that kind of response, there's not a really a right answer. It's more of a subjective preference type thing. So what we would advise you might not even like type thing. We've all kind of had our own explorations. I have in my room on what I like and gravitated towards what I liked by ear, which Sheldon has the same experience, and some of the guys at Kansas City have that same experience. Like that's the way to do it, in my opinion.
I think the most important thing is to get out and experience it.
Hmm.
You're not you can listen to people's opinions all day long. And it's I appreciate everybody for listening to us, but it's important that you also go out and experience it and listen to things, see things, because that's why I got into the industry. Like going to see Jonathan's room. I'm not making this up. You guys have heard me talk about this, or at least some of you have. Going to see Jonathan's room after getting the stuff that I did made me realize that listening to somebody's opinion is really only as good as the knowledge and the experience that that person has that's giving you their opinion, and how much they're actually looking out for your best interests instead of just trying to sell you something. And maybe they believe what they're selling, but it's important to use people's opinions to give you a pathway. And then, especially as an enthusiast, to then go out and get the knowledge so that you can make your own decisions. Because the person that's giving you their opinion doesn't have the same life experiences that you do. And because of that, they're not going to have the same wants and desires and things that they need in order to attain the experience that you're trying to do in your own space. So go out and listen. I would encourage you. I know this sounds really weird, but don't be afraid to travel. Like I have guys come out to the experience center. This isn't a sales thing, but it's just travel to people that are local that you may think are too far away, because the experiences that you gain from those and going to listen to them, see them, like them or not, are going to allow you to open and close doors much easier than just saying, well, what if, or will I like this? I don't know. Well, let's buy it and try it. And then if I don't like it, I can sell it. Well, just go listen to somebody else that's done it. Don't reinvent the wheel and find out for yourself. Jonathan did that to me. I don't know if to be grateful for you or hate you in some way. Deep in thought.
So I'm going to pull this one up next, even though it might be skipping something, just because it's. I want to make sure we address this. This is a pretty straightforward question.
Mm-hmm.
His amplifier light comes on, then goes off. It's only the first light and will stay on for 1 to 5 seconds at reference. Is that okay, or your amp clipping? If it's the bottom green light, you're using basically none of your amplifier power. That bottom light is negative 24 dB, and it's only using about 12.5% of your amplifier power on a quick lookup. There's actually multiple lights, and the top light is red. If you're talking about the red light coming on for 5 seconds, then yeah, you're clipping, and you're clipping hard. But you're saying one light, the first light, and that's like the first signal light, and there's 3 or 4 of them. 3 signal lights and a clip light. So if you're only ever seeing one light, you've got so much headroom. Don't even think about it. Like you have no problem whatsoever.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. And don't think that just because you see one light that you need to turn it up. That's not necessarily a bad place to be.
Yes, you do.
Shut up, Jonathan. Depends on the it depends on the amplifier, and it also depends on what you're actually listening to when you play that, right? Because your lower frequencies are going to demand more power, and you're going to, who knows what you're actually listening to at that given time. So you may not be clipping at whatever, depending on the volume or the voltage that your pre is putting out, but in something else you may clip. So just be very careful and don't use one track. It's usually best to use I would encourage you to potentially use a test tone, but if you're going to use a sine wave, don't leave it on for very long because you can damage a speaker.
Yeah. So if he's using this on subs, then he needs to turn it up because that's not enough volume. But if he's using it on the speaker, then that might be totally right. That
Well,
I think 6,000. That's 24 dB down at reference volume. His gain is
but
like
he doesn't say. Oh, it does say, but you don't know what content he's playing.
it better be like some orchestra with no bass, no timpani, no nothing. It
I
better just
don't
be like a
know.
flute is playing at reference to get to give one
Maybe
signal
maybe it's like,
at 24 dB.
yeah, I don't know. Just
I
don't
bounce
just
off
go
my clip
turning it
lights
up. Make
all the
sure you
time
test
on
it
my
to
NX
acceptability.
amps and my iNuke amps. Like they would, I was friends with the clip lights, and that's all the way up to the red
Mm,
at reference and above. You're not going to hurt anything by clipping your amp briefly. You just don't want it to be sustained.
yeah. And if you're going to test, don't leave a sine wave on for very long. You can overheat things. Ryan asks a question. A lot of acoustic standards are actually built on surveyed average preference. What's too live? What's too dead? What's a good RT60 decay value, etc.? I guess it's not a question. He's just making a statement. And yeah, he's right. He's based on experiences and what people prefer. What do you know what your decay time in your room is?
Yeah, I've measured my R60 sometime. I don't know what it is off the top of my head. And this was like 2020 the last time I did it. I need to do it again since I made changes in my room. We've talked about this on this podcast before. I don't. It's not been recent, but
I don't know that you have.
yeah, I have. I gave you the number because I calculated it's on the thread. I got to find it. Let me go find it.
Master Lessons Ascendo does not use PowerSoft for their sub amps, at least for their infrasonic ones. And the DSP amp sub amps are not PowerSoft either.
So in 2020, so 5 years ago, was the last time I measured mine. And with the Omni mic, mine was at 278 milliseconds.
Okay.
And I've made numerous changes since then, so it wouldn't be the same, but it's in that ballpark. 278 milliseconds.
Mine is dead.
Here, I'll link that thread in chat, and if someone doesn't know how to calculate theirs, they can learn how to calculate theirs from that. So, good luck typing this one again as well. But if you're in chat, you can just grab it. That is how I calculated mine based on a forum feedback and advice 5 years ago.
So we answered that question. Answer that question. Brian Cobb asks, what is the best way to sell used equipment? Facebook Marketplace?
That's good. ABS Forum
Yes,
Classify is
forum.
good.
AudioGone, depending on what the equipment is.
eBay, if it's a niche item and you need a bigger audience.
Yeah, maybe. I try and stay away from eBay if possible. You get hit with a massive fee and you never know what the buyer's going to do. I'm always worried I'm going to get something called on me and they're going to try and commit fraud. But Facebook Marketplace, AVS, there's plenty of US Audio Mart. There's a lot of marketplaces. Some of them will charge you, but a lot of them won't.
ABS Forum is fantastic, really, but you don't have a huge audience necessarily that would be looking in your local area if you're not willing to ship.
Yeah, you got to be willing to ship. Palindrome Guy says, I have a 20-foot wide, 9-foot deep living room. Should I use Monitor Audio Silver FX on my rear wall or Monitor Audio Apex 40 on my side walls? I only have 5.1 with the Silver LCR already.
Then stay with the silver that you already have. So you got matching speakers, right? Or a Silver FX different. If you can stay with matching speakers, I'm all about that.
Depends on the use case. Maybe he's not using the Monitor Audio Silvers correctly.
Monitor Audio Silver FX. I'm Googling it.
Share it.
I might have to turn off my HDR. Let me see if I got that on. No, I don't, because Microsoft 11, Windows 11 released some sort of goofy patch that made it everything green because of Dolby Vision lately. So I had to turn off HDR. Share screen. Here we go. Tell me if you can see it. Can you see it?
Yep.
Those are your LCR?
No, I think he's talking about adding those.
What are his LCR then? Didn't he say they're Silver FX? Maybe they're not.
So he says, I have 20-foot wide, 9-foot deep living room. Should I use monitor audio Silver FX on my rear walls or monitor audio Apex 40 on my side walls? I only have a 5.1 with Silver LCR already. So he has monitor audio Silvers for his LCRs. The FX are the like
Yeah.
wide dispersion.
These kind of speakers have sort of fallen out of favor with high channel count systems.
Mhm.
But if you're only doing 5.1, I'm not sure that that would apply.
What are their specs?
Low sensitivity.
Yeah, I think that's
What
kind of
size driver we got in here? A 6-inch woofer. Power range is only 30 to 85 watts. With that low sensitivity, these are not reference capable speakers, if you
No.
care. I mean, not even really close, because there's not enough power there to make them that to get them there. So what's the other one he's talking about? Let me Google that one.
The Apex.
Apex what?
Apex 40.
That didn't get me what I want.
Monitor audio.
Here we go. That doesn't look like a surround speaker either. This looks like a little. Oh man, these are fairly low sensitivity, a little bit more power handling. What size drivers are in these guys? Let's go to details. 5.5-inch driver with a couple. It's got a 1-inch hard dome tweeter. It's unlikely that this is reference capable as well, but it's on the fringe. It may or may not be depending on distance. You said you're kind of in a smaller room, so it might be.
It's 20 feet wide, 9 feet deep.
9 feet deep.
And it's a living room, so I'm assuming it's open.
Ask him if he cares. Well, I mean, I'm talking to. Do you care about reference, man?
Well, his LCRs are already monitor silvers, so they're going to be limited already.
This looks like a little bit more capable speaker than the last one we looked at, but I don't know that this dispersion pattern would suit with a 5.1 over the other one. In reality, if you're just doing a 5.1, I might personally prefer the other speaker for that. What do you think? If you don't care about reference and you want to just have good coverage with 5 speakers, I think, just from my experience with like clip speakers that were like this for my early days, I liked those better for surround than a traditional style speaker for surround in my room when I had a 5.1.
What's the price point on the Apex?
Holy crud! Look at that, man.
That's a pair, though.
I let me go back to the other one and see what they were. Holy smokes!
I would do the
I'm
other
not
one.
on board, man. I'm not on board with this. I'm out. You're paying too much for too little. You can get reference capable speaker for that kind of money, unless you got some sort of deal you found. That's my opinion. I'm just being honest.
So he said reference isn't that much of an issue. It's more about the speaker being so close to my head. If it's that close to your head, you want the FX,
Yeah.
the silvers.
I generally think with a 5.1 you'll prefer the FX, but I just think that's overpriced for those things.
Yeah, but it's not egregious. $1,250 for a pair. It's not.
I'm all about
Terrible.
reference capable.
Yeah,
All about it.
but if it's under a meter from his head, I mean, I don't know. I'm all about it too, but he's already got the
That was
silver
how we started the podcast.
LCRs.
What's the 3 most important things? And both of us said speakers is number 2, reference
Yes,
capable.
yes, I agree.
So now we're saying like, nah, go ahead.
No, I'm not saying
reference
that.
capable. I'm out.
He's already got an investment in the LCRs. So
If you're happy with them, man, you're happy with them. I would go a different route than you, and that's okay. We can have different opinions on that.
yeah. Do front heights get different information than front tops? If I tell my 7706 I have front tops, I can't choose Aura 3D anymore. I recently switched to front tops from heights for better Atmos.
You got to put that up there. I don't even know where you are in the comments.
Sorry.
Okay, Paul R said it. Here, sorry, we're fighting. There you go. Yeah, I mean, they can because the object determines which speaker they go to in the processor. So think about front heights versus front top. Go watch. Actually, let's make this more clear. Go watch how Dolby Atmos is encoded. Let's say that there's and I wish I should pull up a YouTube video on this or something, but I don't know the link. It'd take me a little bit to find it. There's like imagine a ball in a room, and they drag the ball around the room, and where the ball goes, it's going to play that speaker. So if you have your rectangle room and you have front heights versus front tops, they're in different positions. So as that ball moves around the room, they would play slightly different sounds because that ball is not hitting them at the same trajectory. Now, how much would you notice? I don't know, but technically they are going to get different sounds because the object's moving differently. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, they're going to play differently. And it also, the processor, it used to be that they would use different speakers differently. Like if I remember, Disney preferred the front heights, didn't they? As opposed to tops.
I didn't ever hear that.
I'm
Maybe.
making that up.
Yeah, maybe I just never heard it.
It depends on the encoding from what I've experienced. I don't know enough about this to have a huge opinion or not be talking completely out of my butt. All I can say is that it will change when it's going to use the speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's only if they're not statically encoded sounds. Like if it's using true objects.
Object based.
Yes.
If it's not statically encoded, which not everything is object based. So, but I don't know how the 7706 handles it. There's a lot of proprietariness, and the codecs have changed and how all of this is being handled. So I don't know enough to really be able to guide you very well on this. Which one do you prefer? I see you recently switched to front tops from heights for better Atmos. If you could only have one or the other, I would say tops is the correct choice. There's more content for tops than there is for heights.
I think that's true.
In my experience.
I also think front heights are one of those things in my experience, and I have played with it a little bit, where unless you had a very tall room, I don't know that you gain a whole lot because it's on the same plane, and the integration of front tops makes that sound kind of appear from there anyway because of the stereo imaging and the blending. So I've told this story before on the podcast. When I've played with front heights, you think, oh yeah, that sounds good. I can notice a difference. And then you turn off front heights and you still sounds the exact same. Like you don't even know that's on.
Ask me how I know.
I'm the same way. I mean, this is with testing bears out. Like it's kind of placebo territory.
I had more speakers on my ceiling than I did on my floor.
Yeah.
And it's cool to test stuff, but if the room's not tall enough, you don't notice. There's not enough separation between the LCRs and the front heights.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, especially if you have tall fronts.
Yeah.
So if you can get the speakers over the top to get the effect that Atmos is named after, I think you're going to be able to take more home, and you're going to be happier with that. So Paul, I hope that things have been more beneficial since you went to front tops. Yeah, I think that was the right choice.
I think front heights would be useful if your room was like 12 or 14 foot tall, that type of situation.
Even then. Palindrome guy about the monitor, he does say that they are cheaper in the UK.
Hey, I mean, you wouldn't be listening to us if we were just blowing smoke all the time. We're telling you how it is. Like that's our opinion. So
maybe we are.
No offense meant.
So Oops Sorry brings up a good point. I agree with him.
I don't agree with that.
You don't think 98% people? Okay, you got to take yourself out of the.
Yeah. If you're taking yourself off AVS forum and some of the
Yes,
enthusiast threads, absolutely.
yes,
It's probably
absolutely.
it's probably worse than that. It's probably like
Yes.
99.5% or 99%.
Mhm.
But in our circles that we exist in
I don't
and
know, man.
live, there's
I don't
hardly any
know.
Kansas City enthusiasts in our long-term group that aren't reference capable.
Yeah, because we've like railed them. Not
They
railed
got
them,
there
but
on their own. They
from
were
it,
there
their
on their own
experience. Now
checkers and
imagine if they
journeys.
didn't have those experiences. Would they do that? Because I didn't start there.
Uh,
Most
I got there in 2011 when I first heard my set of pro audio speakers from my friend Sheldon and was like, "Holy crud, what have I been missing? Holy crud!"
Yeah, but if you haven't experienced that, you don't know. You just go with whatever the big store's pushing, and most of them aren't going to be reference capable at all unless they're close to you. And maybe you're sitting close enough, then it doesn't matter. But most people don't listen at reference either.
That's because their speakers can't do it. We've had that conversation before too.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm not even saying you would always listen, but it's fun to listen to on occasion, and we do demos at that for a reason because it's fun and exciting. And last night, to be fair, to put this in perspective, the four of us, all long-term guys, what volume do you listen to most of the time? Most of us said like -6 to -8. So we're not
Negative
pushing
6 to
reference all
negative
the
8,
time. That's not true.
negative
But
10.
what is true is that all of us will demo stuff at reference or right at and enjoy it and really showcase our theaters at that because they're capable and there's no bad sounds or anything. Like it sounds really clean and impressive and jaw dropping and all that kind of thing. You can't do that with an audiophile speaker.
Yeah, I agree. But sorry, I agree with your statement.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's fair if you consider the broader
And I think it's actually worse than that.
yeah.
Cyclone ECGS asks, currently running 5.2.2. If I were to add additional channels, what would give me the best ROI? Rear surrounds, rear tops, wides.
522.
So would you do the second pair of tops or would you do wides? Or rear surrounds?
We had this conversation last week, I think, or maybe just even myself solo. I would probably do the rear surrounds because the majority of content before Dolby Atmos used like as kind of a best standard 7.1. So all that content that had 7.1 is like mixed specifically for 7.1. It folds
Mhm.
down. It's not like you're losing the objects, but it's not in the right placement necessarily. And I think there's quite a bit of content that could benefit from having two rear surrounds.
I agree. I think rear surrounds is the way to go if the room is conducive for it.
Mm-hmm.
If
Yeah,
it's
absolutely. If
not,
you're up against the back wall or something, then the suggestion changes.
if
You know,
you're up against the back wall, I think it even adding another pair of tops becomes problematic because you can't get them behind you.
almost
But I
goes to
think at
wides at that point, doesn't it?
that point, eh, I don't even know that you're going to benefit hugely from wides unless the room is long enough and you're just in a weird spot with your couch.
Room is wide enough, not even long enough, because wide enough ends up being a similar
Yeah.
angle.
Yeah.
Wide enough.
Remember what I said at the beginning. I don't remember the context to why I said it, but less is more in a lot of situations. Don't feel like just because you have an upgrade itch that you need to add more speakers. There are plenty of other things that you could do to greatly increase your experience, and a lot of times more so than adding more speakers would be, like adding more subs. Oh, he says there's plenty of space behind. So yeah, okay, never mind. Get rid of everything I just said. Uh, if the room is adequate and treated, and you're not worried about treatments, rear surrounds.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's going to have the most dedicated content.
But if his subs were not adequate, would you do subs
Oh
before
yeah.
adding the rear
Oh
surrounds?
yeah. Subs are
Did you
remember they're
see
number
that
one on
face
my list.
Jonathan made? That was like, no question. Don't question that.
That's
No
number one
question.
on my
No
list.
subs.
Your subs need to be like on point.
Your subs need to at least equal your base layer speaker count.
Pardon me.
Jonathan, do you have as many subs as your base layer speakers?
I have more,
Okay. It's a good place to
but I
be.
didn't for a long time, but I still think like I think and I've said this at the beginning of the podcast, a very capable, potent subwoofer system will put you in a higher tier by itself, where
I
people go
think,
like, "Wow,
I'm
whoa."
just thinking about this. Most of us have, Grant doesn't, but he has a really small room and he has really capable subs. have more subs or as many subs as we do base layer speakers.
That's because we're off the charts dumb. I mean, we've
That's
taken it
probably
to the
true.
extreme.
That's probably true.
I'm not recommending that per se. I'm
No,
saying that's where you end up
no, but that's
if you're
if
crazy.
you're into it,
Yeah. I mean, that's where you end up.
it provides an experience that is unforgettable. He says it's he has dual 18 sealed Ultimaxes.
Good choice.
Good choice. So, okay, as long as you're got a good response, phasing and stuff's good, wavelet looks good, all that kind of stuff with the subs. The room's treated well. Add the rear surrounds. That's where I'd go. How many subs do you have? Andrew Smith's asking.
11.
Couldn't leave me at 11. You had to add 3 more.
No, I had 8. Now I have 11. What do you have? How many do you have? You have 11 too.
I didn't. You had 8. You added 3 more. That would be 11.
I just wanted a near field for every seat. That's the reason I did 11. And then I'll tell you the truth, and I've said it before, and it's funny. You could turn off 9 of these things, and if you didn't need the near field, 2 18s is plenty for this room. I mean, like, it's laughable, really. Like, turn off 9 of them and turn the 2 up, and it's plenty of volume and it's plenty of excitement. But it's even more. It's even more if you add more. So it's just fun. And we listen to our bass hot. Both of us run our bass hot. You know, we've talked about that. If you're running a hot, you need more cone area. You need more drivers to be able to do that with clean and no compression, and just sounds great.
Yep. So Palindrome Guy says, this is what he's telling us about the speakers. He says, thanks for the advice on the FX. I 100% agree about reference, but how they look is a priority, and they are light oak, and the wife likes them. So the aesthetic definitely matters. And that can be a big factor, right? Sure. What passes the aesthetic test? Because I can promise you that the speakers that Jonathan and I have do not pass the aesthetic test. They were in my living room, and I got that look. I get that look a lot, evidently. They were in my living room, but I got that look primarily because I told her that they were the same size as another speaker, and they were not. They were probably 4 times the size of that other speaker. So I got that look. But he says he got a deal on his LCR for €700. So that's pretty good. If you got all 3 speakers.
And if this is, especially if this isn't your main listening room, like we've talked about that before, you don't have to have reference in every theater or anything. That's not the deal. Like, it's okay.
Reese says, Jonathan made me rethink my decision on wanting to go dual 24 for near field behind the sofa over the dual 18 subs I did have. I might just put the 24s on the rear wall instead.
So the context of that is, I think it was just last week. I'll just give a brief summary for people who might not have caught it. One of the guys named Imura, who came to the crawl, his name's Ray in real life, was telling me a story about how he went from 15s to 24 for near field, thinking like the 24s were going to really move water. What he found out was by the time he got them up to the feel that he wanted, because the cone area was so much bigger, the SPL was too high and it was uncomfortable for him and sounded like it changed the soundstage behind him and all those kind of things. So the 15s actually worked better for him in his position because the driver would get moving further, like the cone would be moving further on the 15 with less SPL than the 24, which wasn't moving very much for high SPL because the driver was so much bigger. So for near field for him, he found out like, I did this inadvertently. It wasn't what I expected. I don't want this. I want to go back to my 15s. So 24, if you need it to move, it can move a lot of air and you can get a lot of tactile feel out of it. But you need that driver moving. And if you can't stand the SPL, then it's not a good choice for you. So that's the context of that one.
And here you and Sheldon were last night trying to convince me that I need to put that calibration back in for the 50 being near field.
That's really fun. And I still think you should.
I will. I need to do that. It feels like you're being assaulted is what happens.
It feels like our audio days. That was fun. Out of all the times I've been over to your house, you only ever showed me that once. One time I experienced that. And I was like, why? You woke it up. It's been in slumber all these times. Now you brought it to life.
Well,
that was fun.
That room can do a lot more. I just don't want to destroy my house. I mean, I could probably make the kitchen collapse if I wanted to, but we try and not do that. I don't think there's any more questions. We've
We're caught
gone
up.
through them all. We're caught up.
Yeah.
2-hour stream. Got anything else?
No, I'll figure out with Sheldon when we're going to do the thing, and one of us will schedule that out for our next movie night.
Well, let us know what we're going to watch. Godzilla. We did almost have you on Godzilla -1, though.
No, I told you I'm watching that Tim's house.
Oh, yeah.
I,
Okay. So we didn't have you.
He's been dragging his feet for a whole year. I'm gonna honor his.
He's dragging his feet, or
his
you're
theater,
dragging your
his
feet?
theater is. He's waiting for his theater to get
Oh,
finished. He's getting real close. Real close.
okay. Make him do it then.
He is at a point now where he's hanging the screen. He's got the RGB lights. He's got the speakers all hung. The carpet's done. The HVAC's done. Like it's the seats are in the room. Like he's real
Wow.
close.
So what's he waiting on? I wouldn't be able to contain myself.
He bought an AMC pass and he's going to the commercial theater like every week now, like twice a week. It seems like you're like minutes away from having your own fantastic theater, and you buy an AMC pass because there's a lot of summer blockbusters he wants to see, and he just wants to have that nostalgia experience.
I can't have the nostalgia experience because it's bad.
It's worse than your own theater. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it can be downright awful at times. Just atrocious.
Yeah.
No thanks. No thanks.
He recently sent our text group pictures because he'd gone to a non-premium, and it was like a small room with a 1080p projector and bad speaker placement, and he said it didn't sound good. And
oh dear.
Yeah, like he's like, well, that wasn't a good choice to go to this particular room.
So. Well, I regret giving them that time of my life. I'll never get that back.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. Well, Jonathan, I hope you have a good weekend.
Yeah, thanks. If there's any RV stories, I'll bring them back.
That was, oh God, I was crying. I was laughing so hard when you told that story.
Oh, man.
For anybody that doesn't know, and I won't go into detail, Jonathan almost died the last a while ago when he was on a... It was just one thing after another, and I thought it was the end. And be like, well, then this happened. Well, then this happened. It's like, oh, how are you still alive?
Oh, man. Pretty funny.
Okay. Well, have a good weekend. Enjoy the camping trip. Got kids' activities. Everybody stay safe out there. I want to know next week what you guys all did on your home theater journey. So that's your homework. Let us know what you did on a home theater journey. If you guys need anything, feel free to scan this code. If you just have any questions, need any gear, need anything like that, or have any advice or any questions that you didn't get to put here, scan that code. It'll take you to the contact page for a Send AV, and it'll come right to me. We'll get you taken care of. So, Jonathan, again, thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining me. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you guys later.